My friends, it's Rob, and welcome to Masculinity Rising number 11, where we're going to talk with Michelle Florez today. And as a reminder, this is value for value. So I'm going to keep doing this because I want to use your time valuably and mine, as long as you participate. Like, share, follow us, whatever. Drop comments, share it with your friends, all of that stuff. And we'll keep doing it. Ultimately, want to make sure you use my time well and yours. So let's do that. If you're here and you've never been here before, I want you to know that my mission is to help create a world where men, dads, all really can rise to their absolute fullest potential. I strive to empower men to cultivate the strength, the power, and the presence to be powerful leaders for themselves, for their families, and ultimately for the entire world. My ultimate goal is to build a community of uncommon men who embody the physical vitality, mental resilience, emotional intelligence, and spiritual groundedness that this world really needs so sorely right now. Through Masculinity Rising, I aim to create a movement that transforms the lives of men, of women, of children, and society as a whole. Hello there. Good to see your face.
Yes, so happy to be here. So excited to be in this beautiful space. Loved your introduction.
Yeah, well, thank you. Michelle, if you don't know, is an awesome transformational coach. She runs MetaMen retreats, has been organizing retreats in Costa Rica, and I've been like super eyeballing those, like, wow, that looks beautiful. One, it
Yeah,
just
you're
looks like an
happy.
amazing place. And then two, the
Mhm.
experience looks really impactful too. So welcome.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, our first Costa Rica experience will be in August. So still have some spots open for that. So you're more than
Amazing.
welcome to join us. And thank you for inviting me here. Really excited to speak more about the work that I do and how it overlaps with what you're sharing with others.
So I want to start with probably the most burning question that's coming up for anybody watching right now, whether they are live or they are tuning in at a later time, which is, you're a female men's coach. Really, really super uncommon, which I
Yes.
love uncommon. So I'm curious, like, how did you get here?
Mm. Yeah, so I always say, I don't consider myself a men's only coach, yet life has guided me in this path. I started actually as a women's coach, as most female coaches, what everyone else does is like, okay, I'm a woman, I'm a woman, I'm going to help women, or I'm a man, I'm going to help men. And so I started coaching women, and that was really beautiful and fulfilling. And then I had my first male client, and that was just as beautiful and as fulfilling. And then after my first male client, I realized, oh, I've been hosting women's retreats. What happens if I host men's retreats? And that was received really, really well. And actually, internally for me, in terms of alignment, it felt very exciting, very fulfilling. And then I realized that there was an opportunity for women to serve men and in a beautiful way and create a very feminine space for men, very nurturing, very almost like motherly space for men. Um, and that's kind of where it just started taking off. And then, of course, by hosting retreats for men every quarter, my entire client base is male now. So, yeah.
It's quite the journey.
But
And
life is always guiding us. That's the thing, maybe in 3 years I'm going to be supporting mothers, there's like, so life is just always guiding us. And right now this feels like the task. And as I invite more facilitators like sound healers, I have a microdosing coach, um, another, like spiritual guide, all these women have told me that they've received a similar message.
I think that's a really interesting thing because a lot of men have, we're coming around now, but a lot of men have lost touch with what the mature feminine energy feels like.
Mhm.
And as men, we're in mom's womb. We get the download. Like, we know everything that femininity is about when we come out because we're attuned to that wavelength. And we really need dads around. Dads around because at the age of like 12, 13, when traditionally the transitional rituals would happen for us, that's when we would come into the Father's wavelength. We'd be taken away. We'd be with the men, and we would receive that like vibrational download just from the presence of the man. And if you're listening to this, you're like, this doesn't make any sense. Your heart is a biological oscillator. That means that it creates an electromagnetic field that extends into the space around you at least 2 feet. I've heard of people measuring it up to 20 feet. JP Sears, Paul Check, they talk about that. Or Paul's talked about measuring JPs, if anybody knows them. And what is really interesting is if your field is interacting with someone else's, your nervous systems are talking. So you're picking up everything that's happening with that person. And men really need, one, the male energy, but two, they need access now to the female energy as well. And not just female energy as in mother, they need the mature feminine energy. And it's so interesting that you're hearing that from other practitioners too, because I imagine that there's a shift happening where men both need the transition, the guidance into like mature masculinity, but also at the same time, the only femininity that we know is what we see in pop culture, and that's not mature femininity either.
Yep. No, that's not mature femininity. Yeah, I agree completely. And there's just such a gift, depending on our upbringing and our conditioning and the narratives that we've created with our lifetime. It's quite powerful for some men. I'm not going to say all men to feel comfortable and safe in being fully seen and by another woman. The parts of them that maybe they're hiding or they feel ashamed of. To feel a level of acceptance, like it's a lot of recalibration, and not just because of me as a facilitator, and then this is the work that you do, also with each other, with other men. So that's why I like to do it men only. I haven't done co-ed yet, which I'm sure will come up. It's really beautiful to see how like this brotherhood comes along when everyone begins to open their heart and kind of like take off their performer hat of achieving or succeeding, which is really beautiful. But who am I outside of this title that I have earned or achieved?
What are the big shifts that you see in those groups when men come together, maybe for the first time with another group of men? I'm only child, grew up with my mom, so didn't have a lot of friends, and then two, not as much access to masculine energy as really I needed. So what are the shifts that you see? What are the big things that come up when that happens?
Yeah, there's a couple of things that come up. With my retreats, the number one purpose is community. So even though there are a lot of internal shifts individually for all the participants, again, like the brotherhood and the relationships that are built is just so beautiful and authentic and genuine. And it kind of makes people like reevaluate the relationships they have in their life as well. So I find that there's a lot of collaboration, a lot of, again, open-hearted relationships that I think whether you're a man or a woman, a lot of us start relationships based on a handshake and some business card and how can you transactionally support my business, like those kind of inauthentic relationships. So I would say that's the one thing. The other thing, and the reason why I like to serve men that it's not just men, it's men that have clarity of how they want to serve the world, or at least clarity that they want to be of impact. Um, I would say just seeing a lot of them getting a lot of momentum and traction in really listening to their soul's wisdom or their heart's wisdom, rather than like, what's the most effective way that I can make X amount of money? Yeah.
Yeah. A couple of things coming up. We'll see where they go. One, how do you help men connect to that clarity of purpose?
Mm-hmm.
That's a big one, and a lot of us are walking around like, I don't know what I am. Dharma.
Yeah.
That's the essential nature of anything. That if it were taken away, it would no longer be that thing. Like a tree, you take the trunk away, it's not a tree anymore. To live in your dharma is like purpose, but like, how do you help men connect to that and figure out how to serve in that way? How do you help them find clarity?
By first creating clarity within. And so it's like, it's not that I'm we're going on a quest, on a journey to find or to seek. It's more about like, let's first clear our internal space. Let's get really regulated. Let's connect with our breath. Let's, create flow in our lives, eliminate the things in our lives that are distracting us. Just from purely intuitively knowing like that doesn't feel good. It's like, okay, well, let's see what happens when we pause that. Um, and then from that, like answers just arise, opportunities arise, things arise. Like there's no specific method other than like really, again, being in that clear channel, and maybe for people that um, yeah, being open at a physical, emotional, spiritual level to then receive life's guidance. And so I think more than like how do I find my purpose, it's more of like how do I connect intimately with source, or wherever it's spirit, or with something that's higher than me that can continuously kind of like speak to me and guide me in that way. That's like the least spiritual way that I can say it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's from the sound of it, reflecting it back to you is really. It's like we're living in a world with a lot of radio static, and like we have that fundamental nature that makes us in here, but we need to clear out the static first because all the
Exactly.
answers are already there. If you can do that, and then you can hear the station clearly.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that, we've become a little bit obsessed to like find your purpose, and I'm all about that. But living and breathing is purposeful. So um, I think from that place is where we find all the little things that we're really good at, but also like give us bliss and bliss to others as well. So I think it's okay if you don't know exactly what it is. I don't think there's one single thing. As I said, I'm a men's coach, but who knows, my career will evolve. Then feeling in alignment as they follow your bliss, feeling blissful, like that's your inner compass. And it's so easy to say, but to actually practice, because we've been so conditioned to sacrifice our joy, sacrifice our bliss because of what we think we should be doing. Um, and yeah, that's basically the better way that I can help my clients. Is just like creating a safe environment and give them full permission to choose what feels good.
That inner compass is always telling us what to do, but so often we're too distracted, too disconnected from it to follow it. And then you mentioned flow. Then we try to fight the flow because we think that we want to go somewhere else. It's like
Yeah.
we're walking up river with like floaties on each arm, like trying to stop it. But instead, if we could just like, I'm going to breathe and just like let this river take me. I'm actually going to turn around and go with the flow of the river and use that to propel me forward. Things are so much easier.
And just being okay with like, and I have no idea where this river is going. Like that's the thing, right? We want to have some level of certainty, but lately I've noticed I have no idea. It's taking me, and I'm going.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll see what happens.
And it's this is an interesting analogy. I like what we're unpacking. You know the general direction that a river is going.
Hmm.
You know the general direction, but it's gonna wind. It's
It's
gonna
gonna
take you
wind, bring the
places
waterfall.
on that journey. There's some waterfalls in there that like you didn't expect, and your ability to surrender into that, because I use this analogy in meditation and in like shavasana and yoga,
Yeah.
is not to like try to relax. When you try to do that in water, you tend to tense up. But if you surrender to water, you can float.
Mm,
If you're like trying to
mm,
float, you're not going to float. But if you relax, all of a sudden you can float in the water. And it's the same thing with this analogy of the river. It's the same thing with finding our flow in life. Is if we can stop constricting and trying to force things,
yeah.
often that surrender will carry us forward. But it's hard to
Hmm.
do. I've been in one of those float tanks before, and I was like, it's really hard for me to relax in here.
I thought it was challenging too for me too.
Yeah.
So yeah, I those don't work that well for me, but I know they're really good for some people. Yeah, what was coming up for me as you were sharing that uh, was how powerful. So two things. How do I surrender? What do you mean by surrender? Like, what is it? How do I practice surrender? I keep hearing this thing about surrender, surrender, but what does it actually mean? And to me, at a most elemental level, the way I embody or practice surrender, it is through my breath. That's the easiest way or tool or practical thing than conceptually being like, okay, I'm gonna let go of this. It is through my breath that I can release physical tension in my body. It is through my breath that I feel like really connect with my highest self, source, spirit, God. It's like through my breath that I can really feel connected. And that has been a powerful tool for me to learn how to surrender. It doesn't have to be everyone's, but it's a big part of my retreats, a big part of what I teach my clients is notice where there's contraction in your body, notice where you're holding on to tension, um, and let's just practice to just allow that to be here.
How can we begin to create, to do a practice like that?
Yeah, I would say I start very simple. So there's so many breathwork practices and tools and videos and apps. The breathing that I teach is super simple and is a gentle, deep belly breathing that I'm sure many yogis, many people have heard. Yet, it's less about like how do I do it? It's more about creating the time and space to actually do it and see what happens. Experiment with, I do a 5 second inhale, 5 second exhale, deep belly breathing, very, very simple. But then if you really practice stretching that muscle, really practice breathing through your nose only for those 15, let's call it 15 minutes, you'll notice immediately how different you feel in that moment, but also cumulative as well. Um, so I would say that's where I would start. Just really slow, gentle breathing. There's other more potent breath work as well, but it can be really powerful for emotional release. But if we can just build a gentle awareness of how we breathe, I feel like that's a really good place to start.
Mm-hmm. So breathing through our belly,
Deep belly
about
breaths, very
5
simple. Deep
seconds in and
five
out.
second inhale, 5 second exhale. It can be so powerful. Just do
Mm-hmm.
that.
So
Yeah.
how long could we do that if we're going to do it each day? What do you
Ideally,
find to be an
at least
impactful
20 minutes.
duration?
Yeah, so I'm basing this off Dr. Leah Lagos, who has actually studied tons of biofeedback. And so actually she's tracked heart rate variability and how breathing increases heart rate variability. So I really also lean in science. I love her scientific approach. And so she recommends twice a day, 20 minutes a day. Now that can be a lot for some people. So for me, it's like if you do 20 minutes, that's excellent. And I know it can feel like a lot, but man, like when you do it, you feel it immediately. You, even though I don't know exactly chemically what's happening, I like to feel like it feels like oxytocin is being released. I just feel like so relaxed and calmed down after 20 minutes though. That's the thing. Like 5 minutes is okay, but 20 minutes is really like the sweet spot.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I'm in agreement with you there. I teach the shift, sustain, reset protocol inside of Rise, where like 20 minutes is that golden zone. It's like, think of it like turning your inner thermostat. Like, do you
Exactly.
want to be hotter? Do you want to be
Yeah.
colder? If you're doing that long practice, you're changing the set point so you can show up how you feel after breath work all the time. If you need a temporary shift, like you and I did breath work going into this, we
Yeah.
did about 6 minutes of breathing and about 4 minutes of like sitting and intention work. If you just need a shift going into a call, going into a meeting, going to talk to your partner,
Yeah.
if you're like, hey, my kid's been crazy today, he's upset and he might cry and I need to be centered for that, you can do that for a breath. You can do that for up to 3 minutes. But if you want that sustain, if you want to sustain that change in your nervous system, 20 minutes is the gold. And you can go anywhere in between there too.
Anywhere in between, yeah, yeah. And also like the thing with that is that you're building a relationship with your breath. That's what it is. Now I breathe, I consciously take breaths throughout my day because I've done this practice for quite a while, I would say maybe 3 years, where I'm just breathing. So now at any moment in a discussion, in a heated, difficult conversation,
Mm-hmm.
I need a moment, you know?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
this, everybody listening, because you do that, because I do that, because everyone that you work with does that, because the people I work with do that, we don't have to remember like, oh, I should take a breath in this moment. It's automatic.
It's
Because you
tool.
do the
It's
formal
like tool.
practice, you don't have to think
Exactly.
about it anymore. 'Cause there's so much like good men's coaching, self-help coaching out there that they're like, oh, remember to take a breath. Remember to make a heart connection. That the person you're talking to, you guys both want the same thing at the end of the day. If you
Mm-hmm.
do this practice intentionally every day, 20 minutes, 10 minutes even, you're going to start doing that stuff automatically. And the breath is so powerful. It's funny because this is such a simple practice. I teach the heart coherence breath. It's 5
Yeah,
to 6 seconds in and out. Same thing.
I'm familiar.
Because
Yeah.
these are the practices, and I teach to focus here, because if you just focus on your heart, that shifts you into coherence 2. That's a balance point between stress, relaxation, sympathetic and parasympathetic activation in your nervous system. Like this is the advanced breath work. Like I love to do like Wim Hof style. We did Soma style before this. That's
Yeah.
my favorite. But I love to do that stuff because you get so many sensations. You can open
Mm-hmm.
stuff up. But the advanced
Mm-hmm.
breath work is the most boring breath work, which is
Exactly.
this like
It's
long,
boring. It's
slow,
long,
how
slow breath.
gentle, how effortless can I make it? And
And yeah,
yes, go.
I feel like I reach a really deep meditative state more than meditation sometimes, right? Because if I'm trying to go from like a beta brainwave state all the way down to theta, that's really hard for my brain. But with breathing, we can quite literally shift our brain state in a beautiful way. And I've reached some pretty deep meditative states just through my breath where I'm like, I'm going to faint or something.
Or I have fainted.
With
I'm
small
floating somewhere.
with slow breathing, and then I receive insights, and then I see things, and then I'm like, wow, I don't know where the idea came from. I'm like, oh wow, I really need to let go of that relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's there's a couple of things that are coming to me. One, and this is me paraphrasing a mentor of mine, is that
mm,
there's a reason why every spiritual tradition begins with the breath. To inspire, to conspire, to expire, all of those things. Spirit
yes,
is part of that. That's the animating life force within us. And so as we
mm-hmm.
breathe, that's what we're doing. There's a reason why all traditions begin with that. And if you slow down enough to pay attention, you notice that there is a specific style of breathing
Mm-hmm.
that's associated with every state that you experience. You
Yeah,
notice, how am I breathing when I'm happy, when I'm laughing? How am I breathing when
mm-hmm.
I'm sad? How do I breathe when I'm anxious? How do I breathe when I'm feeling safe? How do I breathe when I'm working out? How do I breathe when I'm working in? Qigong, Tai Chi, if you'll see me post that stuff, that's what I do. How do you breathe when you're throwing a ball, when you're having sex, when you're doing all of these things? You start to notice that your breath is linked to every single state, and that, oh, if you notice that, you may have the idea that you can begin to alter your breath to achieve this specific state. And
Yeah,
all of a sudden, you can start to affect conditions, anxiety, panic. That's why I started, blood pressure, that you've been told are outside of your control. And imagine what you could do if you just owned that power. And
yeah,
you were bringing up brainwave states. When you bring this heart into coherence, that nervous
yes,
system,
yeah,
because
no,
this is the
100%.
biggest field generator, pulls your brain in. You
Yeah,
get pulled out of that beta, high, monkey, mind, stress,
yeah,
brainwaves. You flip on alpha, which is your bridge in between, and all of a
mm-hmm.
sudden you can access theta and delta, where deep
Mm-hmm.
sleep, recovery, and deep connections happen. And all of a sudden you're in
Yeah,
flow from breathing.
from
It's crazy.
breathing. It is
And
crazy.
you brought up the hormones. Dawson Church writes about this because he funds all Joe Dispenza's research. He
Mm,
organizes those studies. Maybe not funds it, but he organizes them.
mm-hmm.
And he does all the studies for EFT, tapping too. And he's
Mm,
shown that in 10 to 20 minutes of this, we release a couple different things. One, serotonin and dopamine. So we feel calm and fulfilled.
mm-hmm.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Two, oxytocin. We feel a
Mm-hmm.
bond. If there's no
Yeah.
one around, we feel a bond with ourselves or
Yeah.
everything happening around us.
Mm-hmm.
Three, we release endorphins. So we're blunting pain, and those endorphins give us a little sensation of bliss.
Mm,
And four, there's a little chemical called anandamide. Ananda means bliss in Sanskrit, so it makes us
Mm.
feel more blissed out just from doing this
Mm.
breath, which is crazy.
Yeah, I didn't know about that last one. That's amazing.
Breathwork, man.
Yeah, yeah. So breathwork is one of the many elements that we incorporate in MetaMen. We also have an incredible facilitator, Ty, who does movement, intuitive or somatic calibration, and it can feel like dance, but it's not really dance. It's like, again, going back to strong feminine, it's like supporting men and embodying different ways of being beyond, this movement. Just like, what does it look like to actually
Push-ups.
be in your body, and like in a very masculine way and sometimes feminine, and what does it feel like to feel comfortable with that? And then we have Noah, who is a writer and a philosopher, and he incorporates a lot of storytelling and his own wisdom there. So it's a team. It's not just me, and I continue to bring. I mean, I hope you come into as well. My larger vision is to bring more facilitators and people that want to serve other humans and create transformational experiences for leaders. So
Yeah, as we get our moved into our homestead space, I want to bring you here to the Midwest too,
yes,
and everybody listening, I want you guys to come.
we'll bring that into the Midwest.
Yeah, it's dance is a really interesting one because I guarantee everyone listening to this right now, watching it, has had the experience where they're like, they have the opportunity to dance and they're like, I'm just going to sit here. I'm going to sit here right now. And I'm just not going to dance today. And really, I'm going to go out on a limb here. There's no more masculine expression than dance.
Yeah.
Masculinity is about expressing. And
Look at the tribal people.
mm-hmm, it's the oldest physical thing other than sex that we've probably done. Is we've been like, well, I can move. There's a fire. We got drums going. We start to move with it. My son's 2.5. That was one of the first things he liked to do was just start like bobbing with music, and now he'll let it rip. But man, it's a really important thing, and that speaks to that flow that you're talking about at the beginning as well. Is getting out of this rigid like outcome based mindset with our movement. Like I need to do 100 push-ups or I need to lift
There you
250
go.
pounds.
Outcome-based movement. I love that. Yes, and that's the whole point of Venom. Also, it's like in anything, there's no outcome. Let's just be with that. I love that. Yeah.
Process based.
Mm-hmm.
Forget the outcome. It's about the process. It's about the deep presence. And through that
Yes.
stuff, things will happen for you. Like you were talking about, like all this stuff
Energetically.
came to me when I was doing breath work.
Yeah. 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 So we definitely have tons of insights in our experiences, and I think that's the beauty of participating in a retreat, whether it's Fetamen or any. There's so many beautiful and amazing retreats and facilitators out there. Um, but I do think that there's something quite powerful about one, shifting your physical environment, retreating into a beautiful, for me, nature. I all my retreats are going to be immersed in nature because nature. I mean, I can hear the birds around you and like the trees. It's just like nature is already so healing and nurturing that's like 80% of the work. Retreating into nature, listening to nature's wisdom, and then connecting with others intimately outside of the screen too. Just like taking a pause. A lot of the men that I serve are super successful and do so well in what they do, and they're fathers too. So imagine like keeping up with a career. You're a father too. There's like so many roles and responsibilities. Almost like I can feel the weight on their shoulders, and for them to take 24, 48 hours a week in Costa Rica of their calendar, it's like a big exhale to just notice, like, how am I feeling? What check in here with myself? Like, what are the things that are lighting me up, the things that are not? What is it? What is something that I'm not choosing to see or take action on? What is it that I need, that I want to let go or forgive from the past? Like all these things that we don't have the time to do, can be quite powerful. Yeah.
So since we're on it, like what is the MetaMed experience? What is the MetaMed framework? Tell us more about it.
Okay,
Tell me
so
more about it.
yeah, so we started with just a day retreats, and I call them recovery day. I actually moved away from calling it a retreat because I wanted to make it really accessible for people that are like retreat, like men's retreat. So I called it a recovery day because that's what it is. It's meant to be a 1 day experience. Right now in Austin, I'm gonna plan to do one in San Francisco in July. So every 3 months, we gather together in this beautiful 60-acre nature preserve. There's a huge pyramid where we host our sound healing session, and it's basically meant to be a half a day of just inward experiences where we do um, breath work, sound healing, and ice bath. So it's all somatic work, just kind of prepping the nervous system for the second half of the day, which is where Noah and I lead workshops based on a specific theme for that retreat. So there's been themes of exploring your shadow and your unconscious, or sparking your inner flame, rebirthing. So that there's been like different themes in every little MetaMen recovery day. Now, for the week-long retreat, we're focusing on the hero's journey. Have you heard of the hero's journey, Joseph
Tell us
Campbell?
about it.
Yeah. So Noah's second book, I can mention Noah because Noah's my co-facilitator. Him and I co-created MetaMen, and his second book is based on the hero's journey. And so after just hearing him speak about some of these things, and then learning myself, which I had heard about it before, but not I hadn't actually dove into it, I was like, this is perfect. I want to create a retreat where we take the participants to an actual hero's journey so that they can build a relationship, or a conceptual relationship of what each hero's journey space is, and where are they in their life in that hero's journey, and how can they accelerate their growth using this like almost like template, this cosmocentric template that, I mean, Joseph Campbell helped us translate it into more Western um, concepts, but really it's been a part of humanity since day one. So it feels like something universal and ancient. So within our hero's journey experience, we hope that whoever comes into retreats will not be the same person that they get out. Going back to like radical clarity as to what are the things that they're wanting to shift in their life. Yeah.
Yeah, the hero's journey is and before Joseph Campbell and Carl Jung were dialed into the collective subconscious. They were just reflecting outward all this stuff that's been with us for
Yeah,
200,000 years.
exactly.
But it's something that we're living with every day, and it's the process of change. At a super dumbed down level, it's the process of the caterpillar going
I
into the
love that.
chrysalis,
Yeah,
deconstructing
metamorphosis.
itself,
Mm-hmm.
which is not comfortable.
Yeah,
And I
no.
imagine it's terrifying when your entire form is being dissolved and then rebuilding and coming out as something new. It's the process of change, and it's the process of any good shamanic journey, breathwork, ritual, um, any good story. It's why they like Star Wars, Lord of the Rings,
All
all
the
that
good
stuff.
stories. Yeah, yeah. So there's no specific template to our retreats, but there is a very clear intention. And for all meta men, what we're supporting men in doing is, again, really stepping into their heart's wisdom and what they're feeling called to create outside of the provider role. That's the thing. I think a lot of men have bought into the misunderstanding that they need to give up their own desires in order to provide. But I believe that there's a cross sectional, which is what you're doing, right? How can they serve the world and impact the world, have fun, play, and also be deeply fulfilled? Um, and in turn, how can that serve the world? How can that serve the world? There's We need more and more leaders that can embody both their feminine, masculine, that are grounded, that can hold presence in conversations, that use their mind to execute desires of the heart. Um, yeah.
It's come up a couple times, and I think that this is a really important thing for men to understand more and generate comfort with. And I have my own take on it, but I'm curious, masculine and feminine. I want to know more about that. How do we as men balance those forces within us, and what does that mean?
Mm. Yeah, I feel like this is a topic that has become quite popular in the conscious community, and man, even the word balance sometimes I steer away from because it's a dance, and I think it's okay to have a little bit of that extra masculinity, even as a woman. I mean, sometimes I'm just like in my masculine, like running X miles an hour, not doing yoga, like executing, going hard. So I think it's less about like, oh, how can I keep them perfectly balanced? But it's like becoming aware of when you're on that overdrive, or when it would serve you really well to be in tune with your feminine. So again, for me personally, it's more about awareness, and then noticing which one do I tend to lean on, and why does it maybe scare me, or what is my resistance around being more feminine or more masculine? Because I think that for men, some men grew up with amazing moms, and they're so in in tune with their feminine, and actually maybe they have been called that they're not masculine enough. So I think it's less about balance, but more about awareness, knowing like that life is not all about execution, building, like all of that is amazing, but let that execution, that creation, that building, that masculine energy to be rooted from the inspiration of intuition and feeling good, and going back to that, like that being the source of the creation, rather than, again, trying to optimize and make everything as effective as possible, regardless of how we feel.
Yeah, I think of it in a couple different ways. It's like our masculine mindset has us collecting sand and squeezing it, but in so doing, we squeeze it out through our fingertips.
Mm.
And if we can understand that, like, well, maybe if I loosen up, that's our feminine. If I can hold this, I can collect a lot more sand. I
And
also
I
think
can
of it,
do, go
yeah,
ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
continue, go off that thought. I'm changing directions.
I was gonna say that I can do so much more by doing less. I
Hmm.
think that's the beauty of the feminine. I'm like, wait, I don't have to push as hard. Oh, this is great.
You're a human being, not a human doing.
Yeah, and
And
life and opportunities and people can come towards me. Wow, this is
mhm.
awesome. Wow, I attract the things that I desire if I'm in this state of surrender and allowing and receiving. That doesn't mean that I need to meditate all day in the mountain and things will just happen to me. Yes, take action. so
You have to go too.
it's a dance of both. It's a dance of both, and yeah, we live in a very masculine dominant society, so we all just tend to be a little bit more masculine. I don't think it's wrong, but
Yeah,
we're definitely
we're
coming back to balance.
we're coming back to balance. And I think balance, I like to think of the analogy of a tightrope walker. Is like
Mm.
the feminine is the stationary position. The rope is moving
Oh,
and we
I
want
like
to go
that.
to our destination. That's the masculine mindset of being like, that's where I want to go. So we have to exert effort to balance and swing our foot to the next one. And
Mm.
that rope is moving the entire time. And that's the balance. Is it's not perfect balance. It's dynamic. And
It's
it's
dynamic.
knowing.
It's a dance. It's a dance. And this happens in romantic relationships too, as well. Learning how to dance between those two. Yeah.
Mhm.
Hmm.
And we all hold those energies within us. We can have masculine women, feminine men. It's just how we express or receive. I also think of it as like the gas and the brakes in the car. Like our masculine is like the gas. I'm going there. I'm going to put my foot on the gas and go. But if we don't know how to slow down, you're going to
Exactly.
be in an
And
accident really quickly.
as when I was learning more about breath work, that's kind of how I saw sympathetic and parasympathetic. The sympathetic being like that masculine, and then the parasympathetic being that feminine, like nervous system within us. So that makes total sense with the gas pedal and the brake.
And the final thing that's coming up for me is the feminine, which you've already alluded to, is like turning inward, finding that inner guidance. And I think of it, anybody, I'm assuming everyone that's watching this has seen the movie 300. Amazing movie. But one of the most powerful representations of the feminine energy, what I refer to as the anima, which is a little bit different than how Carl Jung used it,
Mm-hmm.
is Queen Gorgo herself in there, contrasted with the teenage oracle that Leonidas goes to get the blessings of the gods, this teenage drunk oracle that gives him this drunken prophecy that like everybody's going to die. And he's like, you know what? I'm going to go into consult with the mature feminine, his queen, who one is his muse, his inspiration for everything. That's the promise of the feminine outside of us, but we also have her in here. She's the energy that propels him forward. That's like, are you going to listen to the words of a drunk girl, or are you going to listen to me, your queen? Like she's checking him there. Like, are you a man or are you a boy? Do you have the courage and the strength to actually step up and do what's necessary? Are you going to step up and defend freedom, or will you bend the knee? She's our muse, our inspiration, but also our wisdom. She's our counsel. So we can turn inward and find that counsel within ourselves. That's the promise of tuning into our anima, or our feminine energy.
I love that. Our inner
And
counsel.
our inner counsel. In tribal societies, it was the council of women that would tell the men, like, hey, we need to stop right now.
I've
They were
heard
the
about
breaks.
this.
And the women
Yeah.
or the men would be like, okay, because our job is to go, but we're going to listen to your counsel. The other thing that comes up with Gorgo is that she's the mother to his son. And so many of us have lost the ability. The earth mother, the archetype is our ability to nurture ourselves.
Yeah.
And in our pursuit of like get shit done, we
I
forget that
love that.
I gotta sleep. I gotta eat enough. I gotta drink water. I have to like sit down and rest.
Exactly. And that's the whole point of MetaMen, actually. It's let's take care of ourselves. And I can see like, and that's why I like to capture the testimonials before and after, because I can just see just like the armor put on the side. I can see the shoulders dropping. I can see the childlike essence just coming out towards the retreat. Everyone's like just little children, just having so much fun, being playful, taking care. It's like, wow, I really needed this day for me. And even on those recovery days that we give ourselves outside of these retreats, it's like I'm guilty of this. I'll pull out my laptop, I'll do that extra workout because I have extra time. I know that working out is bad, but you know what I mean? I'll still, as an achiever myself, I'll still continue to push myself in small little ways. And it is quite challenging for me to just really, really just be like, okay, this whole day it's going to be just about me and taking care of me. So you're right. Yeah, that's a very beautiful, powerful feminine quality. And from that place of self-nourishment, full circle back to our initial conversation, then so much wisdom flows. So much productivity flows as well. Like productivity, like we're more inspired and creative. Um, and things just happen really magically. Like it's really beautiful. Yeah.
You're unleashing that wellspring of energy that becomes the ocean that your masculine boat floats upon. You set the direction, you set the sails, but you're riding that feminine energy, that inspiration, that muse, all of that.
Yeah. I was going to say that I think that is going to lead us to then feel more connected also to Mother Earth, just really protecting our planet and taking, I don't know what that was coming through in that moment, but yeah.
Yeah, in Mother Earth. We talk about that all the time, and we classically associate the feminine with your earth elements, your earth, your water, the masculine with your airy, productive elements, the fire and the air. I was just reading again because I love it so much. Robert Bly's Iron John, and he talked about how like we've only inherited half of the Egyptian system because that's where that comes from, Isis and Osiris. But there was also Heb and Geb, which was the sky mother. Like Osiris was the sky father, and the earth father. So both the masculine and feminine are in both. Are both in the earth, the water, the fire, the air, and it's up to us to recognize that, like, oh, we are complete. We are all of it inside of ourselves. And if I reject any part of it, I'm rejecting part of myself. and part of my ability to like get stuff done without forcing, sacrificing, and exhausting, depleting myself, burning myself out in the process.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, both available, both within us. Yep. So that's kind of what I'm doing with MetaMen. And to be quite honest, like all of these things and all of these questions, because I've gotten asked these questions many times, like why men or why MetaMen or feminine, masculine, and all these things came together after I took action, but really like MetaMen came from a place of just following my heart without asking the logical question as to why this makes sense or why doesn't make sense, or whether it's polarity balancing or what. Those things came afterwards where I was like, what? Well, why did I choose this, or why did this come up? Why is it working out so well? So to anyone listening to this or watching this, to me, and I can sound like a broken record, is continuing to follow that wisdom of the heart, regardless of where you know where it's going. And then later on, you'll see the patterns as to why life, God put it together in such a beautiful way. But then continuing to follow that burning desire, that river, wherever it may lead, is what has led to MetaMen, and is what I hope to create with MetaMen as well.
Amazing.
Yeah.
All right. Is there anything else you want to share with us today?
No, I'm just really thankful. I'm really thankful for the work that you're doing. I'm really thankful for you going like all in and creating this masculinity rising. I think more and more men and women we all need to just see role models of doing the things that we think people are not out there. Anytime I hear any woman or anyone saying there's no good man, good woman, I'm like, there's so many. Just need to create more of them. So I'm really thankful that you're doing this.
Well, thankful that you're doing this too. And where can we find you? Where can we find MetaMen? Sounds like you got some recoveries coming up, and you've got Costa Rica coming up.
Costa Rica's in August. You can find me here on IG. Just go to my link in my bio. And then the Meta Human Experience is the Instagram page for MetaMen. It's also on my Instagram page. August 7th is our Costa Rica retreat, if anyone wants to know information. And then the one in Austin is going to be in September. The San Francisco one, I don't have a concrete date yet, but it's all on the website. So
awesome.
Thank you for putting that out there.
Yeah, so we got August, September. What's the website one more time?
MetaHuman, META Human Experience.com.
MetaHumanExperience.com. All right. Well, that is it for today. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Thank you,
guys.
Michelle, for being here. Again, this is value for value. You can express that this is valuable to you just by liking, commenting, sharing, following us, and just spreading the word, because I don't want to waste my time, Michelle's time, or yours. I want to make sure we all get value out of this. So do that, and we'll keep these coming. Who knows? Maybe we'll do another show together. And that's it.
Next time we'll be in a podcast room.
Yes. And together we rise, stay uncommon, and have an amazing day.
Bye, guys. Ciao.